I knew the night was going to change my life when my husband Adrian walked into the private dining room, wearing a smile I hadn't seen in months, because he had spent the entire year complaining about investors, lawyers, debt, and the future of our family business. Yet tonight he looked strangely calm as he raised his glass and announced that Meridian Manufacturing had been acquired for nearly $68 million. Everyone around the table erupted in celebration, but while his business partner and our son applauded, I noticed Adrian watching me instead of the others, and then he quietly said, "There's one more thing, Elena. You're not part of the future I've planned," before sliding a folder across the table that contained divorce papers, a temporary apartment agreement, and a schedule showing that he had already arranged for me to leave our home within 48 hours. I didn't cry because something far more unsettling had caught my attention. Buried beneath the divorce documents was a closing schedule listing several commercial properties that Adrian claimed belonged to Meridian, including a renovated distribution center and a manufacturing complex in Dayton. But I knew those properties were held by a small company called Evergreen Property Group, because 3 years earlier Adrian had asked me to become its managing member during a restructuring, telling me it was merely a legal formality that would protect the business from creditors. "You said my signature was only administrative," I reminded him, and his confident expression disappeared for the first time that evening as I continued. "So explain why the buyer needs my signature to transfer assets you just told everyone you sold." While the room fell silent and the acquisition attorney slowly opened his laptop to verify the ownership records. Within minutes, the attorney discovered that Adrian had negotiated the sale, as though he personally controlled properties that legally required my authorization, and suddenly the champagne celebration became an emergency meeting because the buyer could acquire the operating company but could not simply take possession of the real estate without a separate agreement. Adrian pulled me aside afterward and whispered, "Don't turn this into revenge." But I looked at him and answered, "I'm not trying to destroy your deal. I'm trying to understand why you ended our marriage and sold the future, while assuming I would still sign whatever you placed in front of me." And when he realized intimidation would no longer work, he began calling lawyers, bankers, and relatives while I drove to my friend Naomi's house with nothing more than a suitcase and the folder he had accidentally handed me. The next morning, I met attorney Claire Morgan, a sharp commercial and divorce lawyer who refused to tell me what I wanted to hear and instead explained exactly what the documents meant, warning me that owning the property through Evergreen did not automatically make every dollar mine because the assets had been accumulated during the marriage. But it did give me a legal position that Adrian could not ignore. "You have two choices," Claire told me, placing two separate files on her desk. "You can use this situation to punish him, or you can use it to protect yourself and negotiate a future where nobody controls your decisions again." And those words changed the way I viewed everything because for the first time I realized that winning did not mean watching Adrian suffer. It meant leaving the marriage with my dignity, financial security, and independence intact. As the acquisition negotiations continued, I learned that Adrian had promised our adult son Caleb a major executive position and a generous financial package after the sale, which explained why Caleb had known about the divorce for weeks but had remained silent, hoping that staying loyal to his father would secure his own future. When Caleb finally came to Naomi's house, he looked exhausted and admitted, "I knew what Dad was doing, and I convinced myself that keeping quiet would protect everyone." But I answered, "You weren't protecting everyone. You were protecting the future you thought you were going to receive." And although he apologized, I told him forgiveness would require time because trust could not be repaired simply because the financial crisis was beginning to disappear. Rather than stopping the acquisition, I worked with Claire and the buyer's legal team to create a completely different arrangement in which the operating company could still be sold, while Evergreen retained ownership of the two major properties and leased them to the new company under a long-term commercial agreement, allowing hundreds of employees to keep their jobs while preventing Adrian from treating my signature as a meaningless formality. The final settlement also required complete disclosure of every bonus, consulting agreement, investment interest, and executive benefit connected to the acquisition. And when Adrian finally signed the revised agreement, he looked at me and said, "You changed everything." To which I calmly replied, "No, Adrian. You changed everything the night you decided my future without asking me, and I simply stopped letting you make decisions on my behalf." Months later, the divorce was finalized. The company continued operating under new ownership, and the properties remained under Evergreen while I rebuilt a career I had slowly abandoned during 19 years of marriage, eventually returning to contract consulting and discovering that people still valued my judgment when I wasn't standing in someone else's shadow. I never received the dramatic apology I once imagined, and Adrian remained wealthy. Caleb slowly rebuilt his relationship with me through honest conversations, And I finally understood that freedom was not about taking everything from the person who hurt you. It was about walking into a future that belonged to you. So please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.